Go ahead and take your Bibles and find Hebrews chapter number 1. Hebrews chapter number 1, a chapter that we began last week. We'll attempt to conclude this morning. It's a chapter that is completely devoted to the exaltation of Jesus, really much like the songs we just sung. To lift up, to praise, to exalt Jesus. In theological terms, that would be to refer to a great and high Christology. That's chapter 1 of Hebrews. But it doesn't just give a great emphasis on Jesus. Well, it does so in a manner that's a bit odd and unique to our modern day context, especially here in eastern North Carolina. Because, as the kids unpack for us, there's a focus on angels. See, the author of Hebrews, which we don't know who it is really is more of a preacher preaching a sermon to a congregation, writes about, in chapter 1, this great Jesus, but does so by showing that Jesus is just different. He began in the first few verses by saying he's different than the prophets. He's different in how God revealed himself through the prophets in the old days, but now in the current days, in the last days, he reveals himself through the Son. And then he comes in verse number 4. Hopefully you found your place. I want you to look very specifically at verse number 4. To referring to Jesus as being superior to angels. And that's where I want to point out the oddness, the uniqueness. Because I'm just going to take a guess here. I'm sure you recently have not had a conversation regarding should the church give more emphasis to Jesus or to angels? You've probably not had a conversation that's been in a theological manner of, is Jesus greater than angels? And if I'm wrong, please, after service, tell me what your most recent conversation regarding that is. I'm really intrigued. Because the way that angels were viewed then is not the way angels are viewed now. See, here's what you need to know about the historical context leading up to Hebrews. If you go about 400 or so years before Christ was born, remember the last Old Testament prophet was Malachi. Don't get him confused with his evil twin brother Malachi. Malachi. I just seen if you're paying attention still. Just started, we're good. Malachi ends his writings, and we have these 400 years of what's called the intertestamental period, the time between the Old Testament and the New Testament. What do you think was the theological topic that started to gain traction in the church during those 400 years? Prior to the church, during those 400 years? Angels. You've even seen this in your readings of the New Testament and maybe did not connect the dots of the significance to that sort of history. Do you remember when Jesus was first coming into this world and Mary and Joseph were told that they were going to have this baby? Who told them? Angels. There's significance in these details that connect back to the history of when the books and letters were written. Do you recall who showed up in the fields at the time of Jesus' birth? To the shepherds specifically. Angels. Do you remember Jesus very early in his ministry? 40 days in the wilderness being tempted by Satan. Do you remember that second temptation where Satan said, Jesus, why don't you just jump off the temple? Who will save you? He said, God will send his angels. Do you know what Satan was playing off of? Some incorrect understanding of angels that had crept into the theology of the people of God during the Old Testament and the New Testament time period. What had been happening, why this great emphasis now with angels? Because all the way through Acts, you have 21 references of angels. It's just kind of slipped in there. And then we come to Hebrews chapter 1 and chapter 2 where there's this huge focus and significance on angels. What had happened within the people of God was that angels were seen to be of the same level and of value and of worth to that of Jesus. They were exalted higher than what they should have been exalted. Now, here's the trickiness for us this morning. In our current context of church, we don't exalt angels that way. We don't think of angels being as significant, as valuable, as worthy of Jesus. We just don't have that issue, but we certainly have that issue with other details, don't we? I mean, the church then did what is so natural, really a natural temptation for us to do. Take something that God has created and made good and made right and made holy and raise it to the level of Jesus, because who's going to argue with us if it's biblical? We do this with things such as our family, our marriage, our money, our rest and relaxation, our vacations. We even do this in church with our ministries, and our programs, our cultures, and our traditions. We take what is good and right, and we increase it, we elevate it to the same level as Jesus. Here is where you need Hebrews chapter 1. You need this text to remind you that Jesus is superior, even above good things. But now let me also clarify this detail, because we live in a time and a culture where we polarize everything, don't we? If you agree with something, then you must disagree with everything else, right? The pendulum swings like crazy. Just because you exalt Jesus does not mean you have to decrease the level of value or worth to everything else. Just because you exalt Jesus as being superior does not mean that we throw under the bus all the examples I just gave. Family, money, vacations, rest, relaxation. It doesn't mean that you just say, to do away with all those things because Jesus is priority. No. Church, understand, the culture of polarizing is not biblical always. Just because Jesus is exalted does not mean we devalue other things. It just means Jesus is better. It just means that the way we understand our family is when we see Jesus as being superior to it first. And the way we view our vacations is when Jesus is superior first. And our money and our ministries, Jesus is always greater. So if you want to summarize Hebrews chapter 1, there's your summary. Jesus is superior. He's greater. He's better. And what you and I need to know and be challenged with is that we can, sometimes even unintentionally, we can take things that are good and make them of the same value of Jesus. In reality, then, we're making less of Jesus in our faith, in our Christianity, and in our church. So here's where we're headed with this text. Hebrews chapter number 1 gives us proofs of the superior nature of Jesus. There's these 7 Old Testament references that are almost like this rapid fire citation of one reference after another reference to show that Jesus is better. Jesus is greater. I want to show you the 3 proofs of the superior nature of Christ, and then immediately after give you the applications of those proofs. So, journey with me through Hebrews chapter 1, the 3 proofs of the superior nature of Christ, how you can know and be assured that Jesus is superior. Here's proof number 1. Jesus is superior because he alone has the title Son of God. He's superior because he alone has the title Son of God. Look specifically at verses 5 and 6. Verse number 5, for to which of the angels did God ever say, and then we've got 2 rhetorical questions. You are my son, today I have begotten you, or again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. Well, the readers knew well. To none of the angels did God ever say that. Not one of them were ever called the Son in the same way he's about to call Jesus the Son. And not one of the angels did he refer to himself as Father as the same way that Jesus has the Father. This is why he says then in verse number 6, And again, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says, let all God's angels worship him. There's proof number one on display for us. Jesus holds the title Son of God because he is, and the important word in verse 6 is, he is the firstborn of God. So what's that mean? Well, it's not a reference to his birth. It's not a reference to his existence or the beginning of an existence. Jesus is eternal. It's a reference to an authority Jesus has that no one or nothing else holds in this universe. It is a right to rule in the kingdom of God. See, to refer to him just as the Son of God, well, that's not just unique to Jesus. The angels were referred in the Old Testament to the sons of God. Jeremiah referred to the people of God as the firstborn of God. So it's not just the fact the title is given to Jesus, it's the significance of the title in respect to Jesus. For Jesus to be the Son of God is for Jesus to hold an authority that no one else holds. God confirms this. Do you remember at Jesus' baptism, where it was the words of God that said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased"? You remember at the Transfiguration, Peter, James, and John hanging out with Jesus, and then the words of God, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." Do you remember at the cross, where sarcastically, in a mocking sense, the soldiers told and said of Jesus, "Well, you are the Son of God." They were more or less saying, "Do something about this cross thing." And then Jesus yielded his spirit to the Father. Do you remember what one gospel writer records of those soldiers who just had mocked Jesus? They said quickly, "He truly was the Son of God." Church, the proof of the superior nature of Jesus, the fact that he's greater and he is better, is the fact that he is the Son of God. He has the right to rule in the kingdom of God. Let me give you the second proof. Jesus is superior because he is God and Lord. He is God and Lord. Look now at verses 7 through 12 of chapter 1. Verse number 7, of the angels, he says, and then he refers to a psalm that shows more or less the angels being obedient tools in the hands of the master. He says he makes his angels winds and his ministers a flame of fire. But of the Son, verse 8, he says, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever." Church, the eternality of Jesus proves his superior nature of anything or anybody else. He is eternal. No one else can claim such a statement. Verse 8 continues, "The scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. You've loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions." You know what's true of Jesus and the way that he rules and has authority and exercises authority in the kingdom and sitting on his throne? He does it correctly. Anybody ever prayed for a governmental leader or any kind of leader to just do something right? To uphold righteousness? To wield the sword of authority and justice correctly? Jesus does. It is Jesus who can, and it is Jesus who is the only one who can do it rightly. Look at continuation of verse number 10. "And you, Lord, laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning." You see what he's doing here? He's saying, look, this is Jesus. He created the world. He laid the foundation, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain. They will all wear out like a garment, like a robe. You will roll them up like a garment. They will be changed, but you are the same, and your years will have no end. Do you see what the writer of Hebrews is doing? He's making you see that Jesus is different, is uniquely set apart to be superior, to be greater. It's kind of like having the question, and this would be similar, but I want to show how it's different at the same time. You've had the question asked of you, who's greater, LeBron or Jordan? There's no question. It's Jordan, in case you're wondering. This is where we stand at Raleigh Road Baptist Church. On this we stand. How about this one? If that was a Sports Illustration, you're like, who's LeBron? Who's Jordan? We'll pray for you tonight at the prayer gathering. But how about this one? Apple or Google? Would that be a fair comparison? I don't know. I mean, it's Apple. See, is it Microsoft? Apple, Microsoft? It doesn't matter. Apple's superior. Some of y'all, less conviction over that one, I see. Been to the eye doctor recently? 1 or 2? I really think they just play games with you sometimes because I don't see much difference. Like either my eyesight's really bad or you're just having fun with me. Bad day? 1, 2. When it comes to such comparisons, how do we really, truly filter our answer? I mean, think about it. We look on the product or the results. We look on what was accomplished. You understand what I'm saying? Compare Jordan and LeBron. Well, we look at the stats. We look at the accomplishments. We look at the result of the effort. That's great, but there's 2 components you need to know when it comes to the study of Jesus. The work of Jesus, absolutely. But secondly, you need to know the person of Jesus. You can't separate the 2. And the writer of Hebrews is trying to get you to see the person of Jesus. He's superior. He's greater. He's better than any other person that's out there. So we've gone through 2. I got sidetracked. I need to give you the third one. Third proof, Jesus is superior because He is king. Because He is king. Verses 13 and 14. And to which of the angels has He ever said, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet? Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation? Clear distinction of Jesus. He sits on the throne of the kingdom. Angels don't. The last proof, Jesus is superior because He is king. 3 proofs that the nature, that the person of Jesus is greater, is better, is superior than anyone. 3 proofs that require 3 applications for your life. 3 applications. They come in thinking through the text in this manner. Since Jesus is the Son of God, and since Jesus is God and Lord, and since He is King, then it is Jesus you must exalt above all. It is Jesus you must worship above all. It is Jesus that you must submit above any. 3 proofs equal 3 applications. If Jesus is truly Jesus, then for your life, you have to exalt Jesus above anything else in your life. You must worship Jesus more than you worship anything else in your life. And you must submit to Jesus above anything else that can be submitted to in your life. Even if church, and this is where it just gets difficult, even if you're comparing and contrasting something of God, the things of God should never be in competition to the Son of God. The things of God should always come in submission to the Son of God. Now, I said earlier that the whole detail about angels Well, it's just odd and unique to us. But there is one detail about angels that really does help us. I think that most of our viewpoint of angels is probably more Americanized than it is biblical. Here's what I mean by that. I refer to angels having the 4 C's of American Christianity. They're cute, they're cuddly, they're chubby, and they're Cupid-like. If you want to write that down, I'll say it again. The 4 C's of American Christianity angels. They're cute, they're cuddly, they're chubby, and they're Cupid-like. Maybe they even sit in a tire, but it's not a C, so I couldn't add that in. Do you know the bumper stickers? You've seen these that say my child's an honor roll student. And then you've seen the other bumper stickers. My child can beat up your honor roll student. You've seen that? An appropriate church sign would be this. A biblical angel can beat up your idea of angels. Does that make sense? Like when angels showed up in the Bible, people fell down in terror. Were they ministering angels? Absolutely. Are angels meant to do something very specific for the purposes of God? Yes. But angels also wage war. And angels also execute the judgment of God. I'm not kidding. Go back and study. Go back and look. When angels show up, people fall down not knowing what's about to happen to their immediate future. I say that to say we should be impressed and in awe of the reality of angels. We don't lessen them. They're very much created by God for the purposes of God. They very much have a role within all of God's redemptive plan and redemptive purposes. So as much as I would say, hey, maybe we need to increase I just raised the roof. How bad is that? That's sad. I'm not doing that again. As much as we need to raise and exalt the level of angels in our understanding, Jesus is greater than that. Jesus is more superior. Jesus is bigger and more powerful. It is Jesus then. It is Jesus then, church, listen to me, that you must exalt above all, and you must worship above all, and to submit to more than any. This past week, Jessica and I were flipping through the stations. We're just trying to find something of mindless TV. You've been there? There was a documentary on the 80s. Did y'all see that? I don't know if we didn't watch much of it. I remember a little of the 80s, a little bit. Jessica remembers just a little bit more. I'm just saying. Y'all took that bad. I'm not just saying. Fact, reality. Hey, this week, if I go see Jesus, y'all just have a nice service for me. Let me see if I can get back on track. One detail about the 80s. The consumeristic culture really gained traction. Movies reflected this. Restaurants reflected this. I mean, you do know it was the 80s that all-you-could-eat buffet started, right? It was. Marketing, all your fast food restaurants, all your restaurants, entertainment culture, it appealed to the consumer. Well, what do you think happened to the church? Same thing. It was the 80s that really church growth strategies gained traction. Pragmatism in the church became the holy grail. And the church created a culture of giving the people what they want versus what they need. So church, it hurts me to tell you what you really already know. Society's culture influences the church's culture more than our culture influences them. And practices in the secular world, if you will, influence the church more than the church influences society. It's just a reality. But I state all this in order for you to see this truth. There are moments in your Christianity that you can be guilty of lessening your exaltation and your worship and your submission to Jesus, and you not even know it, because everybody else is doing the same thing. To lessen fellowship of Jesus has become normalized in much of the American church today. If the writer of Hebrews, I like to refer to him as the preacher of Hebrews, if the preacher of Hebrews were to come and preach to a modern day church context, I believe his message would be more along these lines. And see where this just may step on toes of ideologies in the church today. The message would be Jesus is superior, and he is more superior than to mental and physical health. Jesus is superior and more superior to sports. Jesus is superior, he is more superior to your hobbies. The list can continue, to vacations, to rest, relaxation, to family, to money, to wealth. I even think, in the name of us praying for our mission team tonight, I even think the preacher of Hebrews, if preaching to churches today, would even say Jesus must be greater than your mission trip. And Jesus must be greater than your ministries at the church. And for some, the Sunday morning gathering has become the ultimate place for their Christianity, in which I think the message needs to be, Jesus must be greater than even your experience of a Sunday morning worship gathering. To say all of that does not lessen those things, but it does exalt Jesus maybe to a little greater spot, a greater place of more value and more worth in your life. Christian, what I think many of us need, and not just today, but I'm talking about a regular basis, I think we need hard conversations and willingness for hard conversations. For someone to be able to look at us and we be able to look at somebody else and to say, maybe following Jesus isn't exactly what your life is reflecting. Maybe you need greater exalting of Jesus. Maybe you need more worship of Jesus. Maybe you need to submit more to Jesus. And what may need to be exposed is the idols of our hearts that we've placed of equal value to Jesus. Church, the message is pretty clear of Hebrews. Jesus is greater, but the application of it is extremely hard. Naturally, you don't want Jesus to be great in your life. But the call for your life is for Jesus to be great. I'm going to invite the band, if they will, go ahead and come up. When the band gets settled, we're going to go into just a moment of silence for this reason. I really want you to spend time thinking about and taking ownership of Jesus being great, Jesus being superior. Silence is awkward in our culture. We don't like silence. We don't want to deal with a lot of things in an intimate manner. I'm asking you to do just that this morning. For silence to happen, for nothing to be going on. Don't worry about closing your Bible. Don't worry about putting your notes up, all this. Just let it be, because what I'm asking of you, I'm asking for the thoughts of the person of Jesus to fill your being, to fill your thought process. Don't just close your eyes and space out for a few minutes. It's tempting, I know. It's to think deeply. If Jesus is the things that we claim that he is, am I exalting him properly and worshiping him properly and submitting to him rightly? Ask yourself those questions. Critique yourself for just a moment. And the moment of silence will end with a song of some pretty bold proclamation of our God. so we can respond back to this Jesus that we thought well on. So the next few moments,